Hello and welcome to In the Channel from channelbuzz.ca, bringing news and information to the Canadian IT channel community for the last 16 years. I'm Robert Dutt, editor at channelbuzz.ca and your host for the show. If you've been following the conversation around AI and MSPs over the last year or two, you've probably noticed that a lot of it is pretty fuzzy. AI is going to transform your business. AI is the future of service delivery. AI this, AI that, but not a lot of specificity about what it actually means for the way an AI runs its operations day to day. My guest today has been building technology specifically for MSPs for more than 25 years. He founded Perch Security, which was acquired by ConnectWise back in 2020, and then turned around and founded Rewst, a workflow automation platform built for the ground up for managed service providers. Rewst now has over 1,500 MSPs on the platform, which means he has a pretty clear view of where the channel actually stands on automation, not where vendors wish it stood, but where it actually is. We talk about the difference between an MSP that does automation and an automated MSP, and why that distinction matters more than any specific tool. We get into why AI and automation are not the same thing, and why confusing them leads MSPs to make bad decisions. And we look at what the operational stack of an MSP actually starts to look like as AI moves from advising on workflows to generating and executing them. Aharon Chernin is the founder and CEO of Rewst, and he's been thinking about this a lot longer than most. Let's get right into it. My chat with Aharon Chernin. Aharon, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Nice being here.
Rewst isn't your first time building specifically for the MSP market. You come out of Perch Security, acquired by ConnectWise. What did your time inside ConnectWise's world teach you? And was Rewst a direct response to something specific you saw from there or the community there?
Really, the Rewst idea came from working with MSPs for years while I was doing Perch. I was learning more and more about how MSPs operated. I saw the tools that they were using, the problems they were having. And, mind you, this is like era circa 2017, 18. And they're using tools called PSAs, or professional service automation, that didn't really automate anything. And it had me scratch my head. What's going on here? But then I just continued moving forward because I had security stuff going on. And then there were RMM tools called Automate. And I was trying to figure out what the heck these things actually automated. It was just endpoint stuff, right? But there's so much more than just an endpoint. And then I saw a bunch of single point solutions, software products out there that were doing a single automation, not even calling it an automation, just calling it a software product. And so once I had the opportunity after Perch, I went and I started investigating what were these quirks in the market I was seeing, because automation is much, much bigger than what the market actually thought it was.
Well, and it's for so long been kind of one of the key premises of managed services is the idea of automate everything you can towards success. So it's interesting that you take those observations. You've got the platform now with 1,500 or more MSPs on it. Probably have a better view of the real state of automation adoption in the channel than almost anyone out there. How would you honestly characterize it today? Is it a story of meaningful progress on the MSP side from the scenario that you saw back in your Perch days, or is it still pretty early in the game for many MSPs?
I mean, it's still the beginning, right? Rewst only has 1,500 MSPs, right? And how many MSPs are there? It depends on who you talk to, 60, 80,000, and we only have 1,500 of them. So in my mind, these are all early adopters in automation. But when it comes to, what adoption looks like in a MSP that successfully automates, it's cultural, 100%. If you look at, say, in cybersecurity, if if Rewst was a cybersecurity company, we would be looking for the correct size MSP that focused on security to resell through. But when it comes to automation, like every size MSP needs to automate, small and big. And we're actually seeing that too. Like we see really, really small MSPs automate and really, really big MSPs automate. And we've also see those both sizes, we see them fail. And the number one reason why they succeed is culture. The buyer the buyer could sometimes be the CEO of the MSP, the buyer of a product like Rewst. It could be the CEO, it could be a director of managed services or whatever, just someone that can write a check. That person has to want to automate. The person who's going to actually do the automation, they have to want to do automation, right? So, and that's the engineer. So if the buyer doesn't want to automate and the engineer who's supposed to automate, they do automate, it's not going to work. If the buyer wants to automate and the engineer that's supposed to do the automation doesn't want to automate, it's not going to work, right? And so that's like been the number one finding. And then also this cultural thing extends further than just the want. Like the CEO of the MSP should be running around saying, I want to be an automated MSP and excited about it. If they're not excited about it, they're going to be a part-time automation MSP. And the way I like to say it is, you're either an automated MSP or you're an MSP that does automation.
What do you find helps flip the switch from the one to the other? What is it that gets those teams that are either ill-aligned or not aligned at all to get things lined up and moving in the right direction in that regard?
It's really an open line of communication between the buyer and the person implementing. Because if the buyer has an automation idea, just a single, simple, basic thing that would save the company time or help improve more reliable service delivery, and that engineer performs that small little automation, and they talk to each other. The engineer says, yes, it's running. Yes, it runs 50 times a day. We've saved, 8 hours today running this automation. And that actually gets to the person who writes the check. There is alignment. The tide is turned. Suddenly the MSP says, how do I dedicate more people to helping to automate this MSP?
So it's a matter of sort of getting that first win and getting that in place.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk, obviously, about AI, and Canadian MSPs are being sold a lot of things that blur the line between AI and automation. You've talked about that distinction, the idea that AI thinks and automation acts. Can you expand on that? Because I think that getting that framing right can help change how MSPs make decisions and think about how they're structuring this kind of thing internally.
Yeah. AI, it can't touch anything by itself, right? This goes back to AI thinks, automation does. Take ChatGPT, for example. ChatGPT is not an AI. ChatGPT is a tool on top of AI. The AI is GPT, the tool is chat, right? So just having AI gives you a lot of answers to a lot of questions, but nothing gets done. You need the tool on top of AI. I can't think of an easier way to define it than that. There are things that, like an infinite number of possibilities of what you can do with a tool that leverages AI.
So you guys have Rewst now. You're moving from AI that guides workflows and building them out to AI that generates those workflows. That sounds incremental, but to your point on sort of the thinking versus doing, I suspect it's more significant than that. What actually changes for an MSP team when anyone in the org can describe a workflow in language that's common to them and have it built for them, rather than having to go back to that one person who understands how to build out the automation?
AI is easier to understand than even that. We need to think of it as just another employee. Now, depending on how much the business trusts that employee is how much company controls or governance we're going to put around that employee. If there is 100% trust, it gets free will and can run freely. If there is 0 to 10% trust, every step of the way needs to be gated by a person. But there's a balance. Like one of the funny things about cybersecurity is everyone looks at the cybersecurity risk of the equation, but no one looks at the business risk of the equation. The business risk of having zero trust to your AI means all the other MSPs can get to surpass you now. But at least you don't have to trust your AI, right? So you need to balance business risk and cyber risk. It's never 100%. Nothing is ever 100% cyber risk, or else your business won't move forward, right? But depending on how much you trust it is how much you put people in the middle. Now, how do you put people in the middle? When you tell the AI to build the automation, you require approval gates along the way. And the AI will build in the approval gates for people to get in the way of automation and approve and deny things.
So that kind of solves the problem of the AI acting, obviously fully independently. You guys have announced an MCP server that lets external AI agents trigger Rewst automations directly. That feels like a pretty big architectural shift towards that AI doing side of things, towards operations that are genuinely agent driven rather than just automated. What does that look like in practice today? And where do you see that motion going over the next couple of years?
And, I see like 3 main agent use cases, but if we sit back and we think, where does this MCP server fit in? It's about, in my world, in my vision, the way that I create products, I have to try to predict the future because it takes time. If I create a product for what's needed right now, by the time it gets done, by the time we go to market, it's already a bad old idea. And so in the future, people will be interacting with agents, not with the user interface of any product, a PSA, an RMM, maybe even an operating system. And so when you think that way, without a capable MCP server in front of your product, then you're forcing people to always log into it. Like if everyone is in their Claude Code all day long, and you're the one product that they have to pop out of Claude Code for, that's not good. I don't want to be there. And so that's why. And then also to your earlier thing about requiring more approvals in an automation process for people who don't trust AI. What's cool about using like a Claude Code to interact with the Rewst platform is you can, put these requirements in your Claude code, in your, agents MD, for example, to be enforced however you want them enforced on your side, which is pretty neat, in my opinion. And then as far as like the three major use cases for like agents, um, the whole concept of if someone says, hey, what does an agent-driven MSP of the future look like? I immediately get brain fried because I'm like thinking, well, what agent are they talking about? Like, I really see like three specific distinct agent implementations that an MSP could ever have. One is, an agent that they build for their customers that just does customer-centric customer business things, right? That's not something the MSP would run internally. That's something they want their customer running, and that's an agent, right? And then they may want an agent that the customer uses to interact with the MSP. Like, hey, I need to add a new user, for example. And that may launch Rewst automations or automations, right? Because it's just an agent. It's just AI. It can't go do those things. And then the third type of agent is the agent that an engineer may use at the MSP. Because that agent is going to have maybe more privileged access. It's going to maybe communicate to the engineer in a lot more technical way than, say, something you would want to present to a client.
How do you see those kind of rolling out in terms of timeline? I'm just my first assumption would be that you kind of build the internal side of things first, get the side that the engineer is working with or that the internal help desk is working with up and running, learn from that, and then start building out the customer facing MSP side, and then finally towards the customer end user type stuff.
You always eat your own dog food first. You always, and it's got to be useful for you. If you're just doing it to say you're doing it, you're not going to be able to do it forever. It won't scale. You won't grow it. So it's got to be something that truly improves your business. And I would have your help desk and your engineers doing simple things first. I love the owner operators that have these grand visions of their AI automated futures, because those are the ones that are going to succeed. The one downfall they may have, though, is they have such grand, big visions that they won't settle for anything other than that. And so what ends up happening is they work on the most complex thing first, or they get a ton of small wins under their belt, and don't ever go for the big win because they've got such a grandiose version that they want to go do. So keep it small initially, eat your own dog food, get really good at it, then move it bigger successfully internally. And then maybe the next step is the agent that the customer uses to interact with your business. And you do the same exact thing there. You get small and then you go big. The agent that the MSP uses for their business, that's the toughest. Not because it's technically challenging. It's tough because the MSP has to go learn about the business. A business that you may have no idea how this business operates. But if you want your agent to provide value, you're going to have to learn.
It's a chance to really, to your point on eating your own dog food. So many of us have used the term trusted advisor or variations on that theme for MSP business. This is a chance to really test that theory out and get real about it, I guess.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the economics to this, especially as a Canadian MSP. We've got a smaller talent pool. There's, cross-border salary competition for people. There's the Canadian dollar. The headcount argument for automation is particularly acute, I think, here. Where does break even actually land? What does an MSP need to have in place before this really starts to visibly move the margin needle for the business?
I guess you start with understanding the economics of automation, right? And some of those are, and this is the most basic, like how much time will you save? Like before you build that automation, will you save time? And even the definition of saving time can be abnormal, because saving time might be, well, I don't do this work today. So how do you calculate time savings? Well, one of the time savings is, well, will it reduce churn? Yes. How much time does it take for you to go get a new client? And then you realize, oh, there is a time savings there. Or it may be, hey, this doesn't save me time, but it improves service delivery or improves reliability of a ticket that we close. Okay, well, how much time do you spend each week or each month on ticket redos because they were done wrong the first time? And then folks realize, oh, okay. And so getting folks to realize, what is really time savings? And some of these time savings are security related. So like if you get to take away privileged access from some, your lowest level help desk because they have to do a couple privileged things that can be replaced by automation, how much time does an incident cost you each month, right? And so there is a time savings. So first thing is like understanding time savings. And then the next big thing is understanding, cost to build an automation. Now we've dramatically over the past 3 months reduced the cost of building an automation through Rewst, because you can just describe an automation and it goes and builds it for you. And it can even run, test, and fix when you're done. We don't have any exact hours here, but it could save you like 90% of the build time to build an automation using AI. Just like writing code with Cloud Code saves you a heck of a lot of time building a software product, for example. So you've got an automation idea. It costs you 4 hours to build it and saves you 400 hours a month. So you break even like really, really quickly. You have an automation that takes you 4 hours to build, but only saves you 30 minutes a month. Do you still build that automation? Yes, because as you start becoming profitable in 8 months, right? Automation is not like a 1 month profit thing. Like it's something that builds off itself each and every month. So once you understand the cost to build, that's when you really start to realize, oh crap, maybe I do start small. Because your big grandiose ideas, maybe they save you 10 hours a month, but take you 100 hours to build. It is saving you a lot, but it's also costing you a lot. Now, a lot of that's been greatly reduced with Rewst. And if you haven't tried it, it's like a completely different Rewst experience. Like instead of like dragging and dropping your way to an automation, you're just telling the machine what you need to get done. And then we've got a couple Canadian partners that have had a ton of success, and they are okay with me naming them. And so if any of you folks know these Canadian partners, feel free to reach out to them and ask them how's their Rewst experience or at least automation experience going. So I got a list here. So Resolved IT, last month they did 420,000 tasks and they saved 59 hours. And just so you can get an idea of the size, are 1,800 endpoints. Ideological systems, 28,000 tasks, 45 hours saved. There's 750 endpoints. And then Yardstick did 744,000 tasks, 327 hours saved, 6,500 endpoints. So just some numbers for you.
That's certainly some solid data. You've talked about where you're at now with Rewst. Can you share a little bit about where you see things going in the short term in terms of direction of the technology and of how you're automating processes?
I feel like I'm more of a future predictor than a startup founder. Let's see. I kind of leaked some of it earlier in the conversation. AI is both scary and exciting at the same time. It's this huge opportunity for everybody, for MSPs, for vendors that serve MSPs, but it's also super scary because it's a disruptor. It could disrupt MSPs and the vendors that serve them, and the MSP's customers. And you have to take risks here on how you predict on what's coming. But I really do think the user interface for people is going away. And that the primary user of all products will be AI. That's where the world is going. So, think about that. Well, how does that change how an MSP operates? How does look at the tool stack that MSPs use today? Is your PSA built for people or is it built for AI? It's going to be interesting.
Never a dull moment in this industry.
Yeah.
Last one for me. If I'm an MSP listening to this and being honest with myself and thinking, all right, this is where I think I'm at in my automation and AI journey, what's the one thing that most of them should be doing in the next 6 months that most of them aren't?
I guess starting really high level. You're a business owner. I'm a business owner. I understand how hard it is to get out of firefighting mode. And it's hard to see 30 days out. There's so much stuff going on. There are, so many happy people that want to talk to you, unhappy people that are pulling you aside, people that are down. It's like, you got to spend some time thinking about beyond 30 days. We can't ignore what's this AI automation thing that's coming down, because there is going to be an MSP that's not going to ignore it. And so at a really high level, that's where you start. The next level underneath that is come up with an automation idea. In fact, as the owner of the MSP, that's the most valuable automation idea that will ever be come up with because it's coming straight from the business and not an automation idea that came from, a random engineer with a random problem. That engineer, sure, they can go automate, make their job better, but you'll never know about it. And it may never impact the business. So come up with an automation idea. And if you find that easy to do, come up with more automation ideas. Just what I find is having the ideas is half the battle. And so not even having a product, just start to write them down. Next is you can identify someone in your organization who will become the automation champion. Now, as fast as tech is moving, it may not have to be a super technical person because they'll be able to talk to the agent to go make the automation. But if it were me, I would still try to pick, who's the tech that I think can automate the best. Maybe even go into all of them and say, hey, look, who wants to automate? And pick the hand raiser. That'll also help with alignment. If they want to automate, maybe they'll be supportive of your automation efforts. And then once all that's done, you're finally ready to look at automation solutions, right? And look at an automation solution, learn everything you can about it. Like we have CluckU, our certification program, get certified in automation. And then build that simple automation as quickly as possible and get it into production. Do not wait for perfection. If you wait for perfection, you will get zero automations. Like if you've got a 10-step process and it takes you 100 minutes to get it done, and you only get 9 steps done, you're still saving 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like, why not get that win? Why wait, until you get the last step? And then we've got a conference called Flow, and it's like an automation agnostic conference for MSPs. And it's awesome. The coolest thing about the conference is if you go to a general MSP conference, there will be MSPs that care about automation, but there'll be also MSPs that care about security, that care about, BCDR. It's like lots of different topics. If you go to a cybersecurity conference, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to be hanging out with cybersecurity people. But instead, there's like 10 different verticals inside cybersecurity. Who knows which one this particular person cares about? When you go to Flow, it's all automation people. It's all MSPs that want to become automated MSPs, not just ones that want to do some automation. And so it's just a really cool conference. This is our 3rd year. I think our first year we had like 120 people. In our second year, we had over 300 people. And this year we'll have 500, I think, at Flow. So it's in Nashville, June 23rd. So check it out, mspflow.events. Was I allowed to plug that? I didn't.
I think you're good to. Sounds good. Aaron, appreciate you taking the time and giving us a view of kind of where automation's at and where it could be going. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. It was nice chatting.
There you have it, Aharon Chernin from Rewst. I'd like to thank Aaron for his time today, and thank you for listening. Couple things I'm still thinking about from this conversation. The framing that stuck with me is the distinction between an MSP that does automation and an automated MSP. Sounds like a subtle difference, but Aaron's point is that one is a project, the other is a culture, and only one of them actually compounds over time. If automation is something your team does when they get around to it, rather than something that's baked into how the business operates, you're probably not going to get the return you think you are. The other thing worth sitting with is the governance question. As AI moves from helping you build workflows to actually generating and running them, the trust model has to evolve with it. The new employee analogy Aaron used, starting with limited access, expanding trust as it earns it, is a practical framework for MSPs who are trying to figure out how much autonomy to give AI in the stack right now. And for any Canadian MSPs listening, the data points Aaron shared from Resolved IT, from Yardstick, from Ideological Systems, those are real Canadian shops with real numbers. The economics of automation are compelling anywhere, but they're particularly compelling here given our labor market realities. If this episode was useful to you, the best thing you can do is subscribe to or follow the channelbuzz.ca podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, most major directories. A rating or review goes a long way and is always appreciated. Until next time, I'm Robert Dutt for channelbuzz.ca, and I'll see you in the channel.